me, I was going to say, let me go ahead and get the recording started. But so I know that we went over several things last week, and we had talked about, some potential assignments and things that we could do for this week. And I don't recall specifically what those were. So if anyone does and wants us to help with something, then please unmute yourself and go ahead and speak up. And if not, we will.
I'm looking through my notes. What date was the last meeting?
Last week on the 29th.
Okay.
And Jean, do you pronounce your name Jean or Jean Ann?
Jeannie.
Jeannie. Okay. Thank you very much. That's a tough one. There's so many different spellings and pronunciations.
Right, exactly. Okay, looking at the 29th. The notes I have is have a script next week. A live call to one investor. Oops, I forgot to do that.
That's okay. So anyone else have something ready or prepared, or have something that they would like to address today?
No, I'm not prepared for that one either, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Because we haven't started the process yet. And so I know we've gone over a couple of scripts in the past. Hopefully that's still online. Probably about a month or so ago, we had some type of script that we were doing or that you have provided.
Okay. So then real quickly, we'll first, I want to let everyone know that moving forward, we're going to start trying to have a guest at least once a month, and seeing how that goes and how well the attendance is. We could increase that to twice or even 3 times a month to have a guest speaker. And so I would say to everyone, keep giving us your, what you're looking for, what your desires are, what you'd like to see. If you have a particular guest that you would love to hear speak, let us know about that. We'll reach out and get them scheduled. But we want to make this, we want to make it something that is extremely valuable for you to help you raise capital. And we want to customize it, to whomever is on the call. And so with that in mind, there's a couple of pieces of information that I would like to get from everyone. So if you could, if you've already raised capital in the past, could you drop a 1 in the chat? And if you haven't, a 2 in the chat, so that I can see who, kind of who and where we are on this call.
Hey, Jim, what's going on, Jim? Just jumped in. What was the question?
If you've already raised capital, place a 1 in the chat. And if you're on your first raise or haven't raised yet, put a 2 in the chat.
Gotcha.
Okay. So another thing that I'd like you to drop in the chat is, how many active investors do you have in your CRM or on your list that you are trying to raise capital from?
So
Okay.
Jim, do you mean that we're raising capital for other people who are investors, or we know folks who are
Folks that are
raising
in
capital?
when you need to raise capital for a deal, no matter whose deal it is, if you need to raise capital, how many investors do you have in your database right now that you can call and will potentially invest in a deal with you? So I'll give you an example. I have 6,000 people in my database, but of those 6,000, probably only 10% of them would potentially be investors in a real estate deal. And the reason for that is I have a lot of, well, I have everyone in my database. So friends, family, relatives, coworkers, vendors, brokers, lenders. I have everyone in my database. So it's important that we use tags and other mechanisms to determine who we're going to actually send a particular request to, or who we're going to reach out to, you know, on a particular, whether it's a raise or whether it's, you know, a educational email, or we're requesting them to join a webinar, you know, whatever that looks like. We want to be able to segment them and pick out the ones that we know are investors. Either they have invested before, you know, or they've expressed an interest to us that they would like to invest. Okay. Okay. Now, also in the chat, I'd like for you to next drop in how many investors do you think you need to raise, let's just pick a number, to raise $1 million, or to actively fund a deal that you're on. In other words, you know, how many people right now, you've already said, this is how many I have. How many do you think you need? What's that optimum number that you would be looking for to raise capital from on a regular basis? I love that, Ray. Ray says you only need one if they've got the right amount of money, if they got deep enough pockets. But that's putting all of your eggs in one basket, so to speak. Okay, so we're getting anywhere from 1 all the way up to 500. And I'll tell you, based upon experience and also based upon how much you're trying to raise. And if, as long as you're not trying to raise 15, 20 million or more, then having an active database of somewhere between 50 and 100 active investors will usually get you where you need to go in order to get your raise completed. Now, if you've got 100 potential investors that have already invested previously or have shown a strong interest in investing, they're not all going to invest with you in every deal. They're not all going to invest with you on the deal that you've got going right now. At best, you can hopefully get 10% of them. I know last week we were talking about a closing ratio and what's a good closing ratio as a percent of people that will invest with you on a particular deal. And I had said anywhere from 1 to 3% is normal. And I'll stand by that, because you're usually reaching out to more than just your immediate go-to investors, whether that's 50 or 100 particular investors. And so that closing ratio will come down. But of that 100, I would say that at least 10% of them are actively investing at any given time when you call them. So if you have a deal this month and next month and the month after, you know, you'll have at least 10 people that are ready to make an investment. That doesn't mean that they will on this particular deal. It's up to you to convince them that they want to invest with you and in this deal. And so you want to track that information. And from what I have seen in the chat already, it looks like everyone here would like to add to that database. If you feel that, I'm going to assume that everyone always wants to add to that database. I know I do, no matter how many people I have. But how many people are you actively adding to your database, either weekly or monthly? And how are you doing it? And so I'm going to open up the call to anyone that wants to participate and say how many they're adding and how they're trying to add those people. And if I don't get participation, I will ask you individually. So
Usually going to networking events, but I haven't been to many networking events lately. But that's usually how I add people to my database.
okay. And most of the networking events, Sandra, that you attend are what type of networking events?
There are a couple of them that I'll do investor events, but usually those are the smaller, they're doing the residential side, and so I don't go to those often. The other ones could be just any type of networking event that I decide that I want to pay for. I have not been on Meetup or Eventbrite in quite some time, but that's a good way of doing networking events also. So I need to start doing that. That's on my schedule for 2024 to start doing more networking events. I have a couple of other networking events that I got invited to that's only once a month, and so I'm going to be tagging those people. Those are consistent with the same 10 to 20 people all the time. They get to know you, like you, and trust you at that point, and then you can start asking for some business after that.
Okay. Okay, that's the reason I was asking is if you're going to large conferences or if you're going to local meetups or if you're going to virtual meetups. And you can handle all of those differently. But I would expect if you're going to a small meetup, or even if you're going to a large conference, there's a limit to the number of people you can speak to in a given hour in a given day. And if you're going to try to build any kind of rapport, then that number is going to exponentially go down as opposed to just handing out business cards and collecting business cards. And there's nothing wrong with doing that, especially if you're at a large conference. It would be my goal to get as many business cards as I possibly could. And I might even, if I'm not real good at collecting them, and I don't feel comfortable just asking for them, I might come up with a game or a contest or a trick to try to get as many of them as I possibly could. I might even consider, instead of just attending the conference, and I might consider getting a booth. And the only purpose of the booth would be for me to collect business cards. And I'd have some type of giveaway or some type of contest to get people to participate. And you'd be surprised how many of these conferences, the cost of a booth, if you're taking the lowest cost to help sponsor something, might be in the same price range as a VIP ticket. And I would argue is probably a lot more valuable than a VIP ticket. So I would encourage people to go along that route and consider that. But then you have to follow up. And here's where, unfortunately, all of us fall down. We'll collect 50 business cards or 50 names at a meetup, and or even 10. And we then do not immediately go and put them into our CRM or into our calendar to follow up, so that we can, I'm sure all of us, if we don't already have a script for calling investors, or a script for an email, or just a list of questions that we would like to know about someone to see if they're interested in investing in a deal with us, that we could come up with one pretty quickly and pretty easily. But it's of no use if we are not putting them in our calendar and putting them into a CRM that has some type of drip campaign built into it. And I know that a lot of people starting out will hesitate to purchase a CRM and to spend the money on a CRM. But I can tell you that you can get started for under $100 a month. So you have to ask yourself how valuable you believe that to be, if you're willing to spend, up to $100 a month in order to have a system that allows you to constantly be in touch with these people via text or via email or via social media, or via a phone call. Okay, or via a Zoom call. If you want to talk to more than one investor at a time, once you're comfortable being on a Zoom call, once you're comfortable getting up in front of a group of people and speaking to them, you can start to have a group call as opposed to calling your investors individually, especially if they've never invested with you and you're having a group call to see if they might be interested in a deal. Hold a little presentation every night for 1 hour and ask everyone to jump on. And that's a way for you to exponentially reach more people about the same deal, especially if all you're really, at this point of the game, if all you're really doing is trying to find out, are they ready to invest? You could have a group call that says, hey, this is an investor. I'm thinking off the cuff here, but it doesn't have to be, we're going to present a deal. It might be, we're just going to see what your risk tolerance is, and we might put it on social media and send out an email to everyone on our list. Would you like to know what your risk tolerance is? Join us tonight for a call with 10 other investors, and as we discuss risk analysis and what your risk tolerance is. And the whole purpose of that call really might be nothing more than to say, okay, we've got 10 people on the call. If you're ready to invest, if we had the right deal today and it met all your parameters, are you ready to invest 25 grand, 10 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand into a deal today? See how many responses you get in a week, in a month, in a year, and how many responses you get. And then you want to track those responses, because anyone that says today, if you don't have a deal, you need to reach out to someone like me and say, hey, I've got 5 investors who are ready to invest today. What kind of deal can we put in front of them? You never, 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 never turn away money. When someone's ready to invest, do not ever allow this to come out of your mouth. Right now, I don't have a deal. You always have a deal. If it's a 506B and they cannot invest in it with you because you don't feel like you've developed a relationship yet, and there is no hard and fast rules as to what that looks like. But if in your heart you don't feel like you've documented that, or you don't feel like you have it, then they cannot invest in your deal today, but you've always got a deal. Okay. And like I said, if you don't have a deal, reach out to someone. If you've got investors, I guarantee you there's lots of deals for you to get in on. And if you don't have them, you can always call me. And if you don't like what I've got, I'll send you to other people that have deals. Okay, but always have a deal. And you can even go so far as to ask, is there, so one, that's asking risk tolerance. If they're ready to invest now, if they have the right deal, then their risk tolerance is higher than someone who says, I'm still just learning. I've got I really, if I have to check a box off, I'm going to check off a year. Risk tolerance is a lot higher in that person. They're a lot more or I'm sorry, a lot lower, they're a thinker, a plotter, someone who wants to investigate and really convince themselves before they go to the next level. Okay, but all of that you can do just to try to get in front of more people. The whole idea here is if you don't follow up, it doesn't matter how many names you have. If you don't follow up, it doesn't matter how many people you spoke to. Okay, you have to get these people in your database. You have to start reaching out to them and follow up. So it's better to get 10 names and 10 business cards and actually follow up on them than it is to get 50 and you don't really follow up. You know, you maybe you friend them on Facebook or you connect with them on LinkedIn, but you're not sending them anything. You're not reaching out with a newsletter, with a blog, with a survey. You're not interacting with them in comments on social media posts, where it feels like it's more messaging instead of just a blasted advertisement. You're not calling them. So ask another question in the chat. How many times do you think you should physically speak to someone, whether it's a phone call, meeting them for lunch, or having an in-depth conversation with them at a meetup or at a conference? How many times a year as a minimum do you think you need to be in touch with this person? And I'm not going to count social media connections or email content, because most of the time those are not, they're one way. There's no give and take.
Well, I think you should at least talk to them at least 4 times a year. But sending out mail and having them on a nice touch program helps keep them in mind. But you need to talk to them at least 4, and some just to say hello, others for their birthday, spouse's birthday, anniversary, stuff like that. Special events for them, you should be talking to them.
Yeah, absolutely, Sandra. So I think the consensus is a minimum of 4 or 5 times a year, from what everyone is saying here, and I agree with that. For me, I think 4 times a year, that it's something personal, either a personal phone call, or you sent them a birthday card or an anniversary or Christmas, something that's more personal, something that's not necessarily an ask, something that's not necessarily trying to pitch them a deal or get them involved in an investment. Okay. And we did have up to, I think that someone said minimum 12 times a year. That was, thank you, Ray. And I would say from the perspective of including not just the personal touches, but also educating or trying to get them to invest in a deal with you, then I would agree. 12 times a month is probably, or 12 times a year, once a month is probably a minimum. Now you can overdo it. You have to be careful. I know there's people in my email and lots of folks that I speak to on a daily basis that you wind up blocking them because you don't, you feel like it's too much. And what the content that they're giving you is not, doesn't have enough value for you to want to keep them in the inbox or to open and read their email each time you get one, or their blog or their newsletter. Okay. So you want to be very, very careful about what that looks like. If you have a list that you're actually working and anyone ever unsubscribes to it, you absolutely want to follow up with that person, preferably with a phone call, but at the very least an email saying, I respect your time and appreciate that you asked to unsubscribe to our newsletter or unsubscribe to our regular outreach and educational emails. But if I can, I would like to find out why. Is it that you know, is it something that we did or didn't do? Or can you help me understand what it, you know, what it is that caused you to unsubscribe? And try to get that feedback so that if they just feel like the content's not there, or they feel like it's too much, you know, you can start to customize that. If they just feel like it's too much, they like your stuff and they just don't want to hear from you every week or every day in some cases, then maybe you scale it back and only send them something once a month or once a quarter or whatever that looks like. And I'm saying that not as it relates to their personal outreach. If someone unsubscribes, that doesn't mean you don't get to send them a Christmas card or a, you know, birthday card or something along that lines. I think in my mind, that's entirely different. That's not a regular drip campaign type of outreach. Okay, so you want to be sensitive to that. But I'd like to, if someone else would like to say, what are they doing or how are they trying to find investors? Anyone else using something different? Or is anyone frustrated, feeling like they don't know what to do, how to find an investor, where to find one?
Well, so I have something unusual. I'm going to ask your opinion, and this does not apply to anyone, everyone probably. I'm a student of RE Mentor, Dave Lindahl Group. And a year ago, Dave commissioned a book to be written called 10 Paths. And he had an interviewer come on and interview a select group of people. And my husband and I were among that select group. And we are chapter 2 of the book of 10 stories. So I was considering, we're going to Raise Fest in February, and I was considering buying a bunch of those books and handing them out to people. But I've gotten feedback of how do you do that with and be humble, not being pushy.
Yeah. Well, number one, I think there's a big difference between being humble and being proud of something that you've done. And you have a right to be proud. And I don't think when I was a kid growing up, I grew up in the South, and being a braggadocio is looked down upon, you know, and being too full of yourself. And there's times when that I agree with that still in my life. I still struggle with it to some extent. There's a lot of people out there that I think are too over the top, and it just rubs me the wrong way. But that a lot of that is my upbringing and where I'm from. But I also was a big fan of Cassius Clay, who became Muhammad Ali. And my mother hated him. And she hated him because she said he had a big mouth, and that, you know, that he was bragging about everything, and that he just was too full of himself. And my comeback was always, you're right, Mom, he is full of himself. But as far as the bragging, he backs up everything that he says. And if you can back up everything that you're bragging about, then is it really bragging, or is it informing and being proud of what you've accomplished? So I think it's okay. I don't think you need to be afraid of and I'll use the word bragging. I don't think you need to be afraid of bragging about your book or bragging about your contribution to the book. Okay, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I don't think it's going to be an issue. I don't think it will even come up. Okay. Having said that, I would be very strategic about how I use that. So you said you're going to take it with you to Raise Fest?
Yes.
Raise Fest, is that, so there's a couple of different people that are using very similar names. Is that the one that Dave puts on, or is that the one that Hunter Thompson puts on?
Hunter Thompson.
Hunter Thompson's. Okay. So first off, I think that I don't know how much it's going to cost you and how many you're planning to buy. But I think it would be easier if you said, I'll send you a free copy of my book if you give me your business card, and print that on a t-shirt or put it on a sign and carry it around. Don't actually give the book away until you've gotten what you need first, which is the name, email, three pieces of information. You want a name, an email, and a cellular phone number. And the email cannot be, your work email, unless your work is your business. In other words, a lot of us are in private equity, or a lot of us are in raising capital. We've created our own companies, we've created our own websites. And so in a situation like that, it's okay. But if it's Jim Biggs at Microsoft.com, that doesn't cut it. I'm not sending a book to Jim Biggs at Microsoft.com. You know, I want an email address that'll be there 15 years from now. Okay. Not something that might not be there 15 days from now. Okay.
Right.
So that would be my suggestion. The other would be, consider how much it's going to cost you, and would you rather buy a booth and have a couple of books there that people can purchase the hard copy. But if they will sign up with an email address, a mobile phone number, and a personal email address, a mobile phone number, and I'd say they have to answer at least 5 questions. You know, get something that's very, very easy for them to fill out. So they give you those 3 pieces of information, and then maybe they answer 2 questions along with that. Are you an accredited investor? Yes or no? And have you invested in alternative assets within the last year? You know, something additional information that will be very, very useful for you. You know, maybe it's, are you an accredited investor, and are you looking to invest within the next 3 to 6 months? You know, you come up with the other question, but make it easy enough that people are not feeling like it's too much for me to have to do to get the book. Okay. But I think it's a great lead magnet. And anytime you can give something away in exchange for valuable information that you want, then that is that's what everyone in this game teaches. Create a lead magnet that people want. And it doesn't need to be much. Everyone's giving away free ebooks, which are basically almost every single one that I download is just an ad for that person. It doesn't give me any valuable information at all, but I keep falling for it. And I'm not falling for it. I'm doing it because I want to see what they're doing. But I keep putting in there, hoping someone will actually give me a book that has real value. And 99 out of 100, it has no value whatsoever. Okay. Your book, I can tell you already, absolutely has value. So offering something like that as a lead magnet would be a great way to go about that. And you can use that forever. You know, it doesn't need to ever stop. So as long as you're in something like that, that's a great use of it. So anyone else? Or do you want to follow up on that one, Jeannie?
I was going to say, sending them the book after the fact would be very time consuming and add to the expense of purchasing the book. How would
I wouldn't send a book. I'd send a PDF.
Okay.
If they want a book, if they want a hard copy, I'd make them pay for it. But a PDF, you can export, you can put into a Google Sheet or an Excel spreadsheet that information that you have, and you could then instruct it to send a PDF to everyone on that list. In one email, you could do that. In one CRM action, you could do that. So it doesn't need to be time consuming.
If I were to decide that I would want to give the book out at the conference, how would I approach that in conversation?
The way I would do it, because I'm introverted, is I would make a t-shirt, a sign, something. If I made a sign, I would set up, even if I don't have a booth, I'd have a sign, I'd sit in a chair and I wouldn't move. And I'd say, if you want a free copy of my book, ask. And say, I'd love to give you a free copy. This is what I need. Sign this document, name, email address, and phone number. Okay.
Okay.
Or I'm a big fan of t-shirts. When I wanted to KP my very first deal, I put a big yellow t-shirt with bright red lettering on it saying, and in huge letters, I want to KP your next deal. And I had been trying to KP a deal for a year without success. That weekend, I had 4 opportunities to KP a deal because of the sign. And why did the sign work when my personal outreach did not work? Because in my personal outreach, I wasn't speaking to the right people. With the advertisement, I didn't have to find the right people to speak to. They found me. And some of them, they were like, I said, well, did you respond to my t-shirt? They go, well, yeah, but not really. Someone told me that you were looking to KP and I have a deal. I didn't even see your t-shirt until someone told me. So the word started spreading. Did you see the crazy guy over there with the bright yellow t-shirt? He wants to KP everybody's deal. So something along those lines is what I would do as an introvert. Now, if as an extrovert, there's lots of ways to do it. Jump up on a chair and say, I'm giving away a free book. Anyone that wants one, come over. In between speakers, when they have a break, jump up on stage and do the same thing. Or ask Hunter or whoever's running the program, hey, during a break, can I get up and make an announcement? You can ask for permission or you can ask for forgiveness. If you ask for permission, at least you get a microphone. If you're loud like me, I don't need a microphone. Everyone in that hall would hear me if I wanted them to hear me. And, so that's being extroverted about it. If I'm gonna spend money and give away a hard copy of that book, I want to give away as many as I can. I want to get as much attention from it as I can, or I want to be strategic about it. Maybe I only want to give it away to people that are ready to invest in a deal. Doesn't have to be my deal. But if you're an investor and you've actually invested in a deal with your money in the last year and you're going to invest more in the next 6 months, please come see me and I want to give you a free copy of my book. So you just think creatively about what you want to accomplish with it and, and then use it in that fashion. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So who else?
Jim, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So create a lead magnet and what are some of the good CRMs for a starter?
So what do you want the CRM? So in order to answer the question, I want to ask a couple of questions. What do you want it to do? What's the number one thing that you want to accomplish with the CRM?
Just save people's name and email.
Okay.
But I
So-
would like to automate later on, but not now.
Okay. So one of the things that I can tell you just about spending money in general is that be very strategic and be very selfish about how you spend your money and what you spend your money on. So if you've got 50 grand, are you better served? And let's say, well, I don't want to say, are you new to this space or have you been doing it for a while? Kind of where are you on your journey?
So I just capital raised for one deal, but I want to expand it. So that is the reason I want to create a database and all the pipelines and stuff for the drip campaign.
Okay. So if you've already started doing it and you're willing to spend a little bit of money, have you thought about creating a website, or do you have a website already?
Yes, no, I don't have a website, but I am planning to design something over the holidays and
Okay,
I will create it.
okay. So you can either do something like Go High Level or ClickFunnels. And
Mhm.
those are kind of built for you in a box. In other words, there's a lot of stuff already there, and you just have to plug in, all of your particulars. And they're
Yeah.
relatively cheap. Again, $100, $150 a month. You can, or maybe $200 a month. You can get those types of things up and running. Here's the downside to those: they're proprietary. So when you leave, as an example, I had a conference last year and I put 10,000 names into an active campaign database and started marketing to those people. It cost me $2,500, $2,800 to buy that active campaign for 1 year.
Mm.
After the year was up, active campaign locks it down. I lost access to all of those contacts because it's proprietary.
Mm.
Now, if you're going to do something proprietary, you need to every month, it's like backing up your computer. You need to download all of your content, download all of your pages, download all your lead funnels, download all of your customers. Okay.
Mm.
But if you want to do something that is more open source, then you can do something with WordPress, where that information, and it never goes away and it belongs to you. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, if you
Okay.
hire somebody to do it for you, they can make it proprietary. In other words, I built this WordPress for you, and I'm not just going to give it to you. So if you're going to do it like that, you want to make sure you're asking, is this mine? Do I have access to everything? And you're building it for me. Or you build a scope of work and say, this is what it must be. This belongs to me. You're building it, but it doesn't belong to you. Kind of like school photographs. They take the pictures, or your wedding. They take the pictures, and the pictures don't belong to you. They belong to them. And you have to, every time you want to do something, you have to go back and ask permission. So, make sure that you're not doing that if you're using a WordPress site. And I can give you, we've got a real good connection to a guy that I think does a great job of this, and does it clean, and does it pretty darn cheap. And,
Okay.
if you want something like that, just reach out to me and ask, and I'll make an introduction for you. And that would include a website, a CRM, and several other pieces built on, for you. But
Okay.
so I wouldn't spend money on just there's a lot of good CRMs out there, and some of them are free. But as you start to grow and add things onto them, the cost starts to go up very, very quickly. And so, I would not recommend going that way personally. I'd rather go the route of build my own custom website with CRM built in.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sure.
But if you're just bootstrapping in the very beginning, and all you want to do is send out a couple of emails and make sure that you keep track of everyone, you can do that for almost nothing. Gmail offers Google Contacts, and everyone that you've ever emailed to is there. It's free. It doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
And if you put it into a spreadsheet, you can even say, copy, I want to send out one email. And so Jeannie's going to send out one email from all her Google contacts and say, I'm offering a free PDF if you answer this form. Okay. And you create a Google Sheet, and you just say, put this Google Sheet in this email, and it's done. That's a very cheap way of having a CRM in the beginning if you're just starting out and you don't have a lot of names at first. Okay. So, but there's a lot of good ones out there, and there's a lot of good ones that don't cost a lot of money.
Okay.
Rita, I'm working with a gal right now to redesign my website, and she's very reasonably priced. So if you want her information, I put my information in the chat.
Okay.
It wouldn't hurt for you to compare a couple of people as far as your websites.
Yep, absolutely agree with that. Always, always get a second, third, fourth opinion if you can. So, all right, we're getting close to an end for today. Anybody else that wanted to ask a question or have a comment before we start to wrap things up? And I apologize if you put it in the chat. I've got, it looks like 20 things in the chat, and I haven't been reading them because I've been paying attention to you and answering your questions. So if you put it in the chat, just please unmute yourself and ask.
My question to you, Jim, is that website, a WordPress website that you were just
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah. 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 If anyone wants to, something under $100 a month and wants to build a community type website where you can, engage with people on a regular basis, maybe have a blog or a newsletter, or some educational content you want to put together, that type of website for under and have a CRM built in for under $100 and be WordPress, and it's yours and it belongs to you, reach out to me and I'll make an introduction for you. Love what Sonia said. Focus on connections, not automations. It cannot be said better than that. Also, Ray said, and Floyd Mayweather backed up his trash talk over 50 times professionally. It's okay to be humble, but if you don't toot your own horn, don't expect anyone else to toot it for you. You know I'm an introvert, Sonia. I'm reading through chats if you can't tell. Yes, absolutely make sure that the email works. If someone sends it to you, I would even go so far as to say, I'm going to send that to you tonight. So, make sure it's an email address that is going to be good forever. And as I update it, I would also say to you, as I update the book, or if you'd like to hear about my new book, make sure this is an email address that you expect to have in 15 years. So if everyone didn't read through the chats, you might want to save the chat. If there's anyone that doesn't know how to save it, ask real quick and I'll tell you, but otherwise I'm just going to assume everyone knows how to save the chat. Cheryl, I'm not sure I understand the questions. How many GPs or LPs to get accredited? If you refer someone that invests in it, makes you accredited, you have a good referral bonus. If you're, Cheryl, if you're still on and want to unmute yourself and give a little more color to the question.
Hi, Big.
Hi, how are you?
A little bit. Fine, and you?
I am Peachy Keen. Thank you for asking. So are you, I'm not
you.
sure I understood the question. Could you restate it for me?
Yeah, I'm actually on my way out the door, but so if you are like kind of a you're an, I want to say I'm not a new investor, but in real estate I'm a few years now.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of partnering with some bigger opportunities right now. And I became a partner in a commercial property last year. That was my first commercial. So that was huge. But so how many of those would you say would be required to get someone, to be over the 200K or 600K threshold for accredited?
Yeah, that's one of those questions that has no answer. because there's no way to know what kind of money you're going to make on a particular deal. You can look at the underwriting and say, okay, if I need to make more than 200K, you know, and if I've got an average return of, let's say, 10% cash on cash, then how many deals, how much, not how many deals, how much money do I need to have invested to make that much? So that would be what, $2 million that you'd need to have invested. But
Right.
if you're on deals as a GP, there's a misnomer. You're not accredited or unaccredited, and you don't need to be either. So if you're a GP on a deal, it doesn't matter what your income is. It doesn't matter what your level of sophistication is. You're exempt from the accreditation rules.
Oh,
It's-
really?
And it's also the same as an example. Now that's you personally. That's not all your investors. It's just you. Okay. Another exemption would be, you know, if you're an advisor, you know, if you work in the financial markets, if you are FINRA licensed, then you are exempt and automatically considered to be accredited based upon your knowledge and your career path. Okay, so it's not just net worth and income. So income will qualify you, net worth will qualify you, and so will the type of job that you're in can sometimes qualify you. And if you're on the GP side, you don't need to qualify. Okay, and there's no number of deals that you can do that will ever qualify you to be accredited based upon knowledge and experience, because knowledge and experience as an investor do not qualify you. Knowledge and experience can qualify you in certain industries. Again, FINRA, you know, a certified financial planner, those types of folks will get exempted based on their knowledge and experience. But as an investor, you could have invested in 100 deals and be the most brilliant person in the world. But if you're not, if you don't have that designation behind your name, then you're not going to be exempt. Okay.
Thank you very much. That
You're
was, yeah, very, very clear answer and helped a lot.
Fantastic. So, all right, it's 3 after the hour, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Again, please reach out to us and let us know if you have someone you'd love to hear speak, and we'll go ahead and reach out to them and get them scheduled. And if you have questions that you want to ask ahead of time, and we can address them, you know, on the next meeting, or maybe even address them before then if it's something pressing, then that gives us some good content and ideas about what you guys want to see for the next upcoming meetings. So with that, we will be signing off. Thank you for coming this week. Hope to see you guys again next week, and make sure and bring a friend.